Kislev, the northern region of the Old World, which borders the Norsca and Chaos Lands, the last bastion of defence between the rest of the Empire and those factions. Hello there, Ddraig here, with another unit roster, this time the Mighty Kislev, created by Decomposed. You can play this mighty nation using Mixu's faction unlocker, which I've covered in this video. And I also recommend Kislev's faction overhaul to work alongside this mod, again created by Decomposed. This just removes all vanilla Empire units from the roster, apart from the mortar, changes the default garrisons, and also modifies the tech tree. So let's get into the unit roster, starting off with the legendary Hordes. First up, we have your faction leader, and only choice for leading your campaign. I already done a rundown about Katrina in my Mixu Legendary Hordes 1 mod part 3, which you can watch in the top right hand corner, but you can go through her abilities here as well, so we get a good look at the faction. Katrina is an ice wizard, and this short is not in the vanilla game, so it has been created from scratch by Decomposed. Her old stats are a standard mage fair, not great in combat, especially with no armour, but does have a swirl of frostbite, which can always be useful if trying to escape. She can also be mounted on a horse or ice Pegasus. Skills wise, she has the gift of the Winter Wind, a powerful ability when casting, and something to be taken into account when bringing spells to the battle. Casting cheap spells and making this proc can be very handy in the right circumstance, allowing your artillery or missile units to slowly advance and deal more damage. Beloved of Kislev is a powerful constant ability, boosting leadership and giving units around her immune to psychology, something that can help keep the rank fighting that little bit longer, and with high leadership Kislev has, makes it quite difficult to break down the front line of Kislev soldiers. Onto the Aura of Ice. First up, we have Great Shield Barrier, allowing you to cast it on a unit so they can effectively sneak up onto a back line, and the enemy will have no idea until it's too late. Only active on one unit, but if you can sneak a unit into a huge bear, you can imagine how much panic that would cause. Shield of Cold is next, your standard melee buff, with nice damage resistance as well. Useful to add that extra bit of damage on the enemy. Midwinter's Kiss continues the swing theme of the Aura of Ice, but with an added bonus of dropping their melee attack, so it can be used effectively when the eye meet. Wind Device is your standard breath attack, but given that swirl debuff makes it excellent for picking up off a few units if timed well, allowing artillery and missile fire to whittle them down a bit more. Shard Storm is your straight up damage dealer. On a location, powerful as it sounds, but there's no swirl in this spell, but if this Katrina does the casting, there can be a swirl buff applied just from the cast. Lastly, we have a big vortex spell, Invocation of the Ice Storm. A hugely expensive but highly damaging vortex. Applying a sword debuff and lasting 27 seconds, this spell has to be timed right but can be hugely devastating at the right time. Next Horde is Katrina's father, Boris Bocker, which provides you a tough melee horde, shielded and with high melee attack and defense. Boris is a fighting force with hold line and standing ground buffs, as well as the encouragement buff. Boris is a great frontline support horde, just surround him with some units to make sure he's kept safe. At 148p it is not huge, so be aware that he can go into the duels with a bit of confidence he can survive, but damage might be a problem. If all fails, you can put him on a bear, dropping his melee defense but giving him a huge charge, more armor and health. Also giving him an anti-charge bonus of 35 and an AP of 280, a substantial buff, giving him even more damage, and don't worry that the bears will be back later. You also have a Vampdator horde, and he brings the same stats as the General Vampire and no extra buffs, but it allows me to introduce the Kislev buff, which all units have. This is a leadership buff of 20, as long as the unit is not broken, making Kislev one of the highest leadership factions in the Empire roster, which suits their hard life they lead in the north. Bringing Kislev army is not something easily done. A couple of units of new heroes. Kislev also have access to a Celestial Mage and of course Ice Mages. Other than that, they can make a Priest of Ursan at 700 points. Much like a Warrior Priest, they can bring some battle prayers. The Priest however is not as armoured, but it is slightly better with an increase of 5 defense. Considerably cheaper than a Warrior Priest because of only bringing 2 buffs. The first adds 15 melee attack and defense, but also makes them unbreakable for 30 seconds. in a yard's radius of 50 metres. Very handy, and it can turn a closely fought front line matchup in your favour. Second buff is useful to pop at the start, as your troops charge head on with AP and bonus buffs, adding 8 more punch to that front line attack. This unit does only come on foot though. The Boyar can be mounted on a warhorse or barbed warhorse, allowing you to buff up a unit of cav. Boyar is an equivalent to an Empire Hero Captain, but with better damage and a huge AP of 280, but sacrifices the shield for that. A useful unit at 957, unmounted, it brings Holy Line and Foe Seeker, allowing it to team up with a combat horde to take down any enemy horde or hero. Equally adept at riding with cavalry unit or just as a defence for a mage. A decent choice in most battles. First up, we have the Kislev equivalent of the Spearmen with shields, the Gospas Spearmen. There are a few units which are copied stats wise from the Empire roster, but I wanted to show off these units anyway with their new skins. A classic secure the flank unit, or having a unit like this in the centre rank, deters cav charges down the middle and also monster charges. Remember the Kislev buff though, which adds 20 leadership to all the following units. Next we have the Empire Swordsman equivalent, the rank and file of the Kislev army, the Gospel Axeman. Solid and dependable, and always good to fill out the spaces of any army with a few of these fine men. The Godspear Halberdiers is a high influence in the north, with the large mountains of the Norska right on your doorstep. A great to protect of the important units, or just bring them back to fort around, ready to pounce on a large cav force or monster. A more unique unit now, at 800 points for Ddraig, is a high damage demon unit with a nice anti-infantry bonus of 8, an AP of 12. High melee attack, but defense is where they lack, and also have your armour, making them a class cannon unit and need careful placement. Bring 1 or 2 against that shaft front line, such as Skaven, as this is the unit it specialises in killing. If you can get them in a back or flank, they can chew through units, as long as they're not the focal point of their attack. With the Death Blow ability, making their damage even higher, it's not a unit to take lightly, but it also help them if they start getting any type of missile fire. The last of your standard melee infantry is the Cromwell Guard, heavily armoured with high AP damage at 28, all for 1000 points. With a 95 armour, they can maybe take a beating. They are slow but dependable, and with that high leadership of 95 of their buff, make them really hard to break down. Add some magic to the equation, and they can fight a long time. Before we leave the infantry, we have 2 elite infantry to talk about. The Starguard Militia is a large upgrade on your standard Axeman. Big stats increase of +8 and +12 on melee attack and defense. Add their own breakable and they're only 600 points. A very good elite unit for the price, adding an inch pin to your front line and a nice damage buff. And with magic and your buffs, this could give this unit some potent killing power as well. Only issue being their armour at only 30. So look out for any elite infantry going against them. The last of the elite infantry is the very high damage of the defenders of Alexander. A unit of Cromwell Guard with frenzy and +13 melee attack and +10 melee defense than your standard Cromwell Guard. With frenzy boost damage for charge and melee attack as well, making this unit very potent on the battlefield. But at 1200 points, quite expensive. Also brings Sundering Armour and AP damage of 28, making this very unit against pretty much all enemy units. And yes, you're talking about the most elite infantry, such as Chosen. So make sure you don't get them focused down by your opponent. Keep a cheap unit nearby to help out, and then move this unit in to finish the job quickly. First up, the missile units, which are on foot, we have the Corsairs, an extra missile unit at 650 points. They are expensive, but are better in combat than any Empire crossbow or handgunners. With superior damage and missiles and very good melee damage for 28p, making them good when they have final charge if they want to have ammo. Or we need just chase down some units, as their melee stats are pretty decent for a missile unit. Next, we have the Siberian Hunters, a vanguard unit which also has Stalk, so I know crafty flank attacks. Damage wise, they are very similar to Corsairs, with a small increase in damage on missiles, but they do not have the IP damage of the Corsairs, so don't expect them to go through an armoured opponent if it comes to it. but there are still decent melee stats across the board. The Stiatsi are the final unit of missile infantry on foot, and are quite interesting. First, they have the guns, and do really good AP damage of 17, so definitely useful there. Also, they're even better in combat than Corsairs and are on par with your standard unit of Axemen, stats wise. What we do have is a nasty surprise for Cav, or Yarge monsters, with their melee attack as a bonus versus Yarge of 8, and a good AP of 20, making it surprisingly good against Cav. They do yak charge defense, but like we often see God of the High Elves, provide a very interesting choice. They are 800 points for a reason, because they are a surprisingly flexible unit, but they do only have 30 armour, so against other missile units they will likely end up taking substantial casualties. Now we can bring on the missile cav. First up, we have the Ungol Horse Archers, which are only 475 points, and when I say only, I mean this is a bargain of a unit. This is one of the great skirmish units in the game, only possibly defeated by the elf factions. They have huge range, fire move, and of course fast. They also have the possibility to do some hit and run charges with a reasonable bonus of 25. No army of Kislev should really be out this versatile unit. Bring on two and use them to poke down your armor infantry, and then use them to chase down routing units. And keeping them mounted, it is a great all-round unit. The Drazani are the Kislev equivalent of the Pestiers. They're a good solid unit, just like the Pestiers, but the range can hurt a bit. I have always preferred the Ungol Horse Archers, but they can find a home in any army, but it's a personal preference. As these are 500, only slightly more expensive than the standard Ungols. Onto the Mie Cav and this gorgeous model of the Winged Lancers, the iconic Kislev unit. At 850 points, they were the same as the Empire Knight, but much quicker at 90 speed, compared to 66 for the Knights. They thus sacrifice some armour to get that speed. This unit is very cost effective, as their leadership buff and their constant charge buff has more value than their 850 points suggest, as they can cause fear and have a bigger bonus on the charge. In the lore, when the Winged Lancers charge, they have large feathered wings creating an eerie sound provoking fear of the Winged Lancers, because they are famed for a devastating charge. They are a mainstay of Kislev faction, and a couple of units will easily rack up the kills with hit and run battles all of the day. If you want an upgrade on this unit of Cav, then go for the Griffin Legion. At 1150 points, their stats increase across the board, but are still sporting that quickness, making another very cost effective unit. When we attack armour and damage, making them a small upgrade, but will clearly give our units a run for their money with that hit and run tactics. As promised, the Bears are back, and this time as a Cav force, in the forms of Sons of Orson. A huge charge bonus and damage with a big 20 against infantry, making this unit hit like, well, a bear really. Much slower than the previous two units, but can last longer in a fight with their 125 armour and big health pool. They provide the fear against the enemy, and they are great at getting in the back line with a 35 AP damage. They can munch through a lot of units and are tough to break down. I tend to use them as a charity unit, keeping them bouncing from target to target, never letting them stop, spreading fear across the front line, and of course their huge damage. They are 1060 points, so I aren't wanting to sink into one unit, so don't waste them. Finally, we can talk about the last of the elite units. So this is the unit of the Shock Cav, Boroglasgrad Rota, an elite version of the Winged Lancers. Reasonably priced at about 1200 points. They are just elite Winged Lancers. A good bonus versus Yarge bonus of 10, and they are shielded with good armour of 90, and of course keeping that good speed. High leadership as well, and a melee stats buff across the board, bringing an extra elite bit of Cav to your army. There are 2 elite of Kislev now, and you can bring your normal standard Empire mortar. But also, you have the Ungarn cannon, which is a small range in your standard Empire cannon. This is made up of much more damage. whereas the standard cannon of the Empire is 223 damage, whereas this has 352, making it much more damaged, but very expensive at 1200, 400 more than the Empire one. But there are huge possibilities, but we do need to get. The Karak cannon is a bit more expensive and it's more in line with your standard cannon at 1300 points. Being a dwarf cannon given to Kislev at the Great Battle of Kislev, it's a parting gift from the dwarves, and it also brings their magical resistance of dwarves of 25%. Kislev reads expensive artillery, so you only bring one or two, so that's something to be aware of when forming your armies. But don't overlook a mortar. With your high leadership, the enemy will be held against your front line for longer than your standard Empire faction, so you can launch mortar rounds to soften them up even more, knowing your line will hold. Finally onto the beasts, only two types of units. First up is a Hawks Miska. At only 500 points, a very cheap unit of high speed and bring good AP at 34. This unit can certainly have a home in the army. A versatile unit due to its speed and being able to be where it's needed, either chasing down routing units or taking out an artillery unit. Not a must have in an army because the speed of your cavalry is quite high at 90, but can be handy when the battle is spread. One unit at most is quite ideal as they dissipate a ranged weaponry very quickly, so keep them moving and keep them taking your pot shots at various different types of unit. Of course, but to finish with the Armoured Warbear, spreading fear and terror across any battlefield, being the largest bears in the old world. At 1400 points, it is a useful tool for Kislev. Use it against the front line and most units will struggle to stop it, as it has a high IP of 195, and it brings a sword effect that really does pay for itself. 80 armour and good immediate defense and attack, making them quite a pain for your opponent to deal with. Downside is, being a bear, it does rampage, that you can get into trouble. Use your Winged Lancers and Griff Legion on the bear to help it deal with damage and protect it from any anti-arge threat. Even though the anti-arge unit of Warhammer will struggle getting this unit down because it's very tough. But there is no Kislev buff, so the leadership can be quite problematic as only 50. So the leadership can tank quite quickly, more than you might expect. So bear that in mind. Thank you for watching this unit guide to the Kislev mod by Decomposed. Hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you in my next video.